Today's pastry is called Hamantashen, and it's going to be filled with prunes and raisins. What I need to do right now is to soak everything in a little bit of warm water, and when they're nice and soft, I will then take and grind them up with some other ingredients. This is a special holiday treat right at the end of February, early March, and the Jewish people celebrate the holiday of Purim, and that is based on a story in the Old Testament called the Book of Esther. And this particular pastry is going to come out in the shape of the hat of the enemy Haman, and it is shaped like a triangle. Now, some people like to make a cookie type dough. I do a bread like dough. So I'm going to let this simmer and soften in a little bit of water, and I'll get back to it in a few minutes. The next step is to add a few packets of yeast to some warm water and just let it rest for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to put this over here, and I'll take and finish sifting 4 cups of flour. Next step will be the ingredients that will be added with the yeast, and that will be eggs, sugar, and oil. So I will take this, put it aside, and blend 3 eggs, some sugar, and oil. And you just set this aside, wait for your yeast to settle in, and then add these ingredients to the flour as well. Now I'm going to take the yeast and the egg mixture, put it in with the flour, and I'll try hand mixing it and see how I do. And then you have to really let this rest and set it aside for a while. While this is resting, I will prepare the filling. And this is where, once it gets well blended in, I start to use my hands, but it's still a little bit liquidy, so make sure that you get it really mixed in before you start to use your hands. And that looks like it's good, and I find this is a lot easier. It's a wonderful soft dough to work with. I'm going to cover this right now and let it rest while I make the filling. So I'm just going to leave it over here and see if it just rises a little bit. Then you see I have the softened prunes and raisins, and I'm going to take and drain the water. Okay. And the next step will be to grind it up. So I'll take it over here, and I'm going to add it into the mixer. Then I'll add the sweetener after it's already ground up. See how nice and pasty it is? So now we have a beautiful prune paste, and there are just 2 ingredients: the lemon juice, just a light squirt or 2, and pure honey. So you just drizzle it around, mix it up, and there you have a very, very nice prune paste for the Hamantashen. I let the dough rest about 15-20 minutes, and as you see, it's just beautiful. It's so soft, and along the way I'll add a little bit more flour so it won't stick on the mat, but it is just wonderful to work with. A 1/4 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch is really what it should be. And I use a glass to create my shapes. So you'll see, this is the size glass I use, about 4 inches. And make your circles. I like to resort to using a small rolling pin to stretch it out a little bit more. So that looks good. And then I take a tablespoon of the filling, put it in the center, fold it up, pinch it, and if you want, you can also sort of like roll it a little bit on the edges so they don't open up. You can see they're so easy to work up, and I still have to let them rise for a few minutes before they bake, and then I have to baste the tops with an egg wash and a little bit of either cream, milk, to your liking. See how this one was misshapen a little bit, but I can still work it into a triangle. The dough is very pliable. Take an egg yolk, tablespoon of creamer, milk, and this is what you'll baste on top of each Hamantashen. And you need to wait for, I'd say, 10 to 15 minutes before you put in the oven. Here they are right out of the oven. And you can see what a nice golden brown sheen they have. And I'd like to just take one out, put it over here, cut it open, even though it's quite hot, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like on the inside. There it is. I'm now going to show you how to make apple Hamantashen. And I use canned apples like you would do for a pie filling. But what I like to do is first take and put them at least through a strainer just to get some excess juice out of the apples. You don't want it to be too runny. If there. So what I do, and I think I'll use a spoon, just swish around the apples, so I think if you can see it's coming through the other side of the sieve, and then I'll scrape it off, and it just won't be as moist. It's not necessary to have all of that, and you've got enough seasonings so that you really don't have to add cinnamon or sugar or anything like that. So now what I do is I just take it off, and then I'll put it in the wood bowl that I have right near me and chop her up. And that is a perfectly wonderful filling for the next batch of Hamantashen. You want to make sure that you get out as many big chunks as you can. Now that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is take a few of the dough circles and add a little bit, about a tablespoon, of the filling. And do as you would with, like you did with the prune. Get that point for the triangle and press lightly on the sides, or you can always wrap it a little bit. And there you have the first apple Hamantashen. I'm making another batch of egg wash with the creamer and the egg yolk because I have another batch of Hamantashen, and I want to make sure that they're all coated nicely. So these are the apple Hamantashen. Now this will go into the oven and will bake for another 15 to 20 minutes. Here's the beautiful apple Hamantashen, and I'll take one and just see what it looks like on the insides. And if you notice, as I'm cutting it, I'm not getting a lot of juice. That's why I strained the apples so they would come out nice. You see the dough and you see the filling. And here I have all the prune Hamantashen. It makes a lot, and I hope that you'll venture to try them because they are delicious year-round. But the most important thing is these Hamantashen represent a lot in history. And I'm hoping that you realize that this holiday of Purim, even though it's written years ago, has a great deal of meaning today. And if you'd like to read the book of Esther in the Old Testament, you'll see what I mean. So I hope you try these, and I look forward to seeing you next time.